Welcome back, treasure hunters and coin lovers from around the world. I'm genuinely excited you're here today because what you're about to hear might completely change how you look at the smallest coin in your pocket, the humble 1989 1-cent coin, a piece so ordinary on the surface yet hiding a story so extraordinary that collectors and experts have whispered about values reaching an unbelievable $16 million. And as we dive into this jaw-dropping topic together, imagine for a moment that something you may have tossed aside, ignored, or spent without a second thought could actually be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, because the 1989 1-cent has become legendary not because it was meant to be rare, but because of a perfect storm of minting errors, production mistakes, unusual circumstances, and collector demand that transformed a simple penny into a potential fortune. And to understand how this happened, we need to step back to the late 1980s when millions upon millions of pennies were being struck every year, produced rapidly to meet circulation needs, often under intense pressure where speed sometimes outweighed perfection, creating an environment where small mistakes could slip through unnoticed. And while most 1989 pennies are worth only their face value, a microscopic fraction of them exhibit anomalies so extreme and so fascinating that they have captured the imagination of the numismatic world, starting with the most talked about possibility: the transitional metal error. Because during this era the United States Mint was experimenting with compositions and refining processes following earlier changes from copper to copper-plated zinc, and in rare hypothetical cases a 1989 cent may have been struck on an experimental or leftover planchet of an entirely different metal, potentially even a bronze or exotic alloy not intended for public circulation, and if such a coin exists and is authenticated, its uniqueness alone could push its value into the multi-million-dollar range, especially if it displays correct weight, magnetic properties, and metallurgical signatures inconsistent with standard production. Then there is the legendary double die error scenario, where the die used to strike the coin was misaligned during the hubbing process, causing dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye, not just minor machine doubling but bold, separated doubling on the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." And when doubling is strong, crisp, and confirmed as hub doubling, collectors go wild because it represents a mistake locked into the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same dramatic error, yet incredibly few may have escaped detection before the die was retired, adding rarity to visual shock. And rarity combined with beauty is a dangerous combination in the collector market, driving prices into territory that seems unreal to outsiders. And then we have off-metal strikes, another category where a 1989 cent could theoretically have been struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime or even a foreign coin planchet, resulting in incorrect size, weight, and appearance. And such errors are already valuable at lower levels, but when combined with perfect condition, provenance, and timing in the market, values can escalate dramatically, especially when the error is unique or nearly unique. And speaking of uniqueness, one of the most extreme possibilities discussed among advanced collectors is the wrong design strike, where a cent design could be impressed onto a planchet previously or subsequently struck with another design, creating a stunning and unmistakable mint blunder that tells a story in metal. And while these are extraordinarily rare, the very existence of one from 1989 would cause shockwaves across auctions, forums, and collector circles worldwide. And that's before we even consider the possibility of a mule error, where two dies never intended to be paired together are used on the same coin, producing a hybrid that technically should not exist. And while known mules are often from different denominations or years, a confirmed 1989 cent mule with documented mint origin would be considered a numismatic unicorn, something museums would want, elite collectors would fight over, and investors would view as a tangible piece of monetary history, pushing valuations into astronomical territory. And condition plays an equally critical role in this story, because a coin with even the rarest error can lose much of its appeal if damaged, worn, or altered. But imagine a 1989 error cent preserved in near-perfect mint state, with sharp details, original luster, and untouched surfaces, graded by a top-tier grading service with full authentication and encapsulation, instantly removing doubt and adding legitimacy. And legitimacy is everything when 7- and 8-figure numbers are involved, because at those levels, buyers are not just purchasing a coin, they are purchasing trust, documentation, and the confidence that what they hold is genuine, irreplaceable, and historically significant. and another factor fueling the $16 million narrative is market psychology, because high-end collectors often compete not just to own something rare, but to own the rarest, the best known, the most talked about example. And when a single coin becomes the face of an entire category, its value can skyrocket. Beyond what logic alone would suggest, driven by prestige, bragging rights, and the human desire to possess something no one else can, and the 1989 1 cent fits perfectly into this psychological space because it comes from a modern era where people assume nothing valuable exists, making the discovery narrative even more powerful, and discoveries themselves add another layer of intrigue. Because imagine a story where a rare 1989 cent is found in a roll, a jar, or an inherited collection. Unnoticed for decades until a sharp-eyed collector spots something off, submits it for analysis, and triggers a chain reaction of excitement, speculation, and media attention, and media attention can multiply value dramatically by bringing new buyers, new money, and global awareness into the picture, transforming a niche collectible into a mainstream sensation. And we also cannot ignore the role of rumors, whispers, and theoretical possibilities in numismatics, because not every legendary coin has been publicly revealed. Some are rumored to sit quietly in private collections, bank vaults, or even government archives, known only to a handful of insiders, and the mere possibility that a $16,001,989 cent exists somewhere out there fuels endless searching, roll hunting, and fascination, keeping demand alive and interest high. And even skeptics admit that the minting environment of the late 20th century was far from perfect, with human operators, aging machinery, and constant production pressures creating countless opportunities for mistakes, most of which were caught, but not all, and it only takes one extraordinary survivor to rewrite the price guide. And then there's the global collector base to consider, because modern coin collecting is no longer limited to one country. Buyers from Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and beyond actively compete for American rarities, bringing international wealth into the market and pushing prices higher than ever before. And when a coin captures global imagination, its value becomes detached from traditional benchmarks and enters the realm of art-level pricing, where uniqueness, story, and emotional impact matter more than metal content or denomination, and that is exactly where the idea of a $16 million penny lives, at the intersection of rarity, error, condition, story, and desire. And whether or not you ever find such a coin, the lesson is powerful and inspiring, because it reminds us that history is not always locked away in museums. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely, patient enough to learn, and lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. And as you finish listening to this story, the next time you see a 1989 1 cent, you might pause just a little longer, tilt it under the light, check its weight, its details, its feel, and wonder if you're holding something ordinary, or if by some incredible twist of fate, you're holding a tiny copper-colored key to a $16 million dream. And that sense of possibility, that spark of curiosity, is what makes coin collecting not just a hobby, but an adventure that anyone can join with nothing more than attention, knowledge, and a bit of hope. Next. 2019 1 cent coin. Today, because what we're about to explore together challenges everything most people believe about modern money, especially the idea that a 2019 1 cent coin, a penny that feels almost brand new and completely ordinary, could be worth an astonishing $14 million due to rare errors, minting mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities that most people never imagine exist. And as you settle in, picture yourself holding a shiny 2019 penny between your fingers. Something you may have received as change, tossed into a drawer, or ignored entirely, never suspecting that under the right conditions, with the right combination of flaws and circumstances, that tiny coin could represent generational wealth. And this is not just a fantasy or a rumor-driven story, but a deep dive into how modern minting, despite its advanced technology, can still produce shocking anomalies. Because even in an era of automation, lasers, sensors, and computerized quality control, the process of making coins is still physical, mechanical, and imperfect, and it is within those imperfections that legendary coins are born. And to understand how a 2019 1 cent could ever reach a $14 million valuation, we first need to understand how billions of pennies are produced each year using copper-plated zinc planchets fed at high speed into massive presses, where dies strike them with tremendous force, sometimes hundreds of coins per minute, and while most of these coins come out flawless, the sheer volume alone means that when something goes wrong, it can go wrong spectacularly, and one of the most powerful possibilities lies in the concept of a wrong planchet error, because although 2019 cents were intended to be struck on copper-plated zinc blanks of a precise weight and thickness, history has shown that blanks meant for other denominations or even foreign coins can accidentally find their way into the cent presses, and if a 2019 penny were struck on a planchet made of a different metal entirely, such as solid copper, bronze, steel, aluminum, or an experimental alloy, the result would be immediately noticeable in weight, color, and sound, and if laboratory analysis confirmed that the metal composition did not match any officially authorized cent planchet for that year, the coin would instantly become a numismatic sensation. Because modern wrong metal errors are exponentially rarer than older ones due to tighter controls, and rarity multiplied by modern disbelief creates explosive collector demand, and that demand is what starts pushing values into the millions, especially if the coin is unique or one of only a handful known, and then there is the incredibly exciting possibility of a transitional or experimental metal error, because even in modern times, mints test materials, coatings, and processes behind the scenes. And although these tests are not intended for public release, history proves that mistakes can happen, and if a 2019 cent were struck on an experimental planchet or a leftover batch from testing, with verifiable metallurgical fingerprints that do not match standard production, the coin would not only be rare but historically important, representing a glimpse into the mint's internal experimentation, and coins that reveal hidden chapters of mint history are highly prized, often commanding values far beyond what their denomination suggests, because collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying a story that was never meant to be told. And another major factor in the $14 million conversation is the possibility of an extreme double die error, not the minor doubling that comes from machine vibration, but a true hub double die where the design was misaligned during the die creation process, producing strong, separated doubling that can be clearly seen on the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." And while double dies are known throughout U.S. coinage history, finding a dramatic example on a 2019 penny would shock collectors precisely because modern die-making technology was designed to prevent such errors, and when a system fails despite advanced safeguards, the resulting error becomes even more valuable because it represents a breakdown where none was expected, and if only one or two such coins were discovered before the die was retired, the scarcity would be extreme. And extreme scarcity in a modern issue creates a perfect storm of desire, competition, and price escalation, and then we move into the realm of striking errors, where the coin may have been struck off-center, struck multiple times, or struck through foreign material such as grease, metal shavings, or debris, and while many strike errors are relatively common and modestly priced, a truly extraordinary strike error, especially one combined with other anomalies, can elevate a coin into elite territory. And imagine a 2019 cent that is dramatically off-center yet fully dated, or one that shows a massive retained cud where part of the die broke away during striking, leaving a raised blob of metal that transforms the coin's appearance, and if such an error occurred early in the die's life and escaped detection, producing only a tiny number of examples, the value could skyrocket, particularly if the coin remained in pristine, uncirculated condition, because condition acts as a multiplier, turning rarity into something truly explosive, and one of the most whispered about possibilities among advanced collectors is the concept of a mule error involving a modern cent, where mismatched dies from different designs or denominations were accidentally paired together, creating a coin that officially should not exist, and while mule errors are among the rarest mint mistakes known, their existence proves that even the most controlled systems can fail, and a confirmed 2019 cent mule would instantly become one of the most famous modern error coins in history, drawing attention not just from collectors but from museums, investors, and the media, and media attention is a powerful force in value creation, because once a coin becomes widely known, demand expands far beyond the traditional collector base, bringing in people who want to own a piece of history, a conversation starter, or a symbol of extraordinary luck. And global connectivity amplifies this effect, because collectors from Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and beyond now compete in the same auctions, bringing unprecedented levels of wealth into the market, and when multiple high-net-worth individuals set their sights on the same one-of-a-kind object, bidding can escalate to levels that seem unreal, and this is how numbers like $14 million become plausible, not as everyday prices, but as peak valuations driven by competition, prestige, and scarcity. And prestige is a crucial element here, because elite collectors often seek not just rare coins, but the rarest. Example of a category, the coin that defines it, the one referenced in books, articles, and discussions, and a legendary 2019 error cent would fit perfectly into that role, because it defies expectations, coming from a year most people consider too modern to matter, and that defiance adds emotional power, because it tells collectors that treasures are still being created, even now. And discovery stories amplify this power even further, because imagine a narrative where an ordinary person finds a strange-looking 2019 penny and change, notices something unusual, submits it for expert analysis, and unknowingly triggers one of the most exciting numismatic discoveries of the modern era, and discovery stories resonate deeply because they offer hope, the idea that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon something life-changing, and that hope fuels searching, roll hunting, and ongoing interest, keeping demand alive even when no confirmed example has yet been publicly sold, and authentication is the foundation that supports all of this, because at multi-million-dollar levels, buyers demand absolute certainty, and a $14 million 2019 cent would need to be verified through rigorous testing, including precise weight measurement, metal composition analysis, microscopic dye study, and comparison with known mint records, and once authenticated and encapsulated by a top-tier grading service, the coin's legitimacy would be cemented, transforming it from a curiosity into a blue-chip collectible. And beyond the technical and market factors, there is also the philosophical appeal of error coins, because they represent moments where perfection failed, where a system designed to produce identical objects created something unique instead, and uniqueness is deeply appealing to humans, especially in a world of mass production, and a modern error coin embodies that appeal in its purest form, because it proves that even today, with all our technology, chance still plays a role, and chance is exciting, unpredictable, and powerful. And as you listen to this story, it's important to remember that not every 2019 penny is valuable. In fact, the vast majority are worth exactly 1 cent, but the existence or even the possibility of a single extraordinary survivor changes how we view them all, because it invites curiosity, careful observation, and respect for the details. And that mindset is what turns ordinary people into successful collectors. And as we come to the end of this journey, I want you to imagine the next time you receive a 2019 penny, instead of dismissing it, you pause, you look closely at its surface, its weight, its color, its strike, and you wonder whether you're holding just another coin, or whether by some incredible twist of fate. Next, 2010 D1 cent. Today we're diving into a story that sounds impossible at first glance but becomes more fascinating with every detail, the unbelievable idea that a simple 2010 D1 cent coin, a penny so modern that many people still remember spending it on candy or tossing it into a jar, could be worth an astonishing $15 million due to rare errors, minting mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities. And as you listen, I want you to imagine holding a coin that most people would overlook without a second thought, yet hidden within its metal, its strike, and its history could be a combination of factors so rare that collectors, investors, and historians would compete fiercely to own it, because the magic of numismatics is not only in ancient gold or centuries-old silver, but sometimes in the quiet anomalies of modern coinage where perfection was expected and failure was never supposed to happen. And to understand how a 2010 D penny could even be discussed in the same breath as multi-million-dollar rarities, we need to understand the environment in which it was made, because by 2010 the United States Mint was operating at an enormous scale, producing billions of cents each year, using high-speed presses, automated quality control, and standardized copper-plated zinc planchets. Yet even with all this technology, the minting process still relied on physical machinery, human oversight, and materials that could fail, slip, misalign, or behave unpredictably, and it is within those tiny moments of imperfection that legendary coins are born, starting with one of the most dramatic and talked about possibilities, the wrong planchet error, because although cents in 2010 were supposed to be struck on copper-plated zinc blanks of a very specific weight and composition, history has proven that occasionally blanks intended for other denominations or even foreign coins can end up in the wrong hopper, and if a 2010 cent were struck on an experimental planchet, a leftover alloy, or a blank intended for another denomination such as a dime or even a foreign issue, the resulting coin would instantly defy expectations in weight, thickness, color, and sound, and if authenticated, such a mistake would represent a massive failure in the mint's internal controls during a period when such errors were believed to be nearly impossible, making its rarity exponentially more valuable. And when rarity meets the shock factor of modern origin, collector demand can explode, because modern era coins challenge the assumption that everything recent is common, and that challenge alone can drive prices into extreme territory. And then there is the possibility of a transitional metal error, which although unlikely on paper, has occurred before in United States history, where coins were struck using a composition not officially authorized for that year, perhaps due to leftover stock, testing, or internal experimentation, and if a 2010 penny were discovered to be struck on a solid copper or bronze planchet rather than copper-plated zinc, with verifiable metallurgical evidence and correct mint characteristics, it would not only be incredibly rare but historically significant, representing a deviation from long-established composition standards, and such a discovery would ignite intense interest from collectors who specialize in composition errors, museums seeking unique examples of mint experimentation, and investors drawn to once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and that is where numbers like $15 million start to enter the conversation, not because of hype alone, but because the coin would occupy a category of its own, with no direct comparisons, and uniqueness is often the most powerful driver of value. And speaking of uniqueness, another category that could elevate a 2010 cent to legendary status is the presence of an extreme double die error, not the minor machine doubling that is common and often dismissed, but a true hub double die where the design was impressed onto the die multiple times at misaligned angles, resulting in bold, separated doubling that can be seen clearly without magnification on elements like the date, the mint mark, Liberty, and In God We Trust. And while double dies are known across many years, finding a dramatic example on a modern coin like 2010 would be shocking precisely because improved technology was supposed to eliminate such mistakes, and the fewer that exist, the more valuable they become, especially if only one or two examples are confirmed, because collectors are drawn to coins that represent failures of systems believed to be flawless, and that narrative alone adds a powerful emotional layer to the coin's appeal. And then we enter the realm of strike errors, where the coin may have been struck multiple times, struck off-center to an extreme degree, or struck through foreign material, creating a coin that looks visibly wrong and immediately fascinating. And while many strike errors are valuable at lower levels, an extraordinary combination of errors on a single coin can multiply its value dramatically, especially if those errors occurred at different stages of production, telling a complex story of how the coin passed through multiple machines without being rejected, and if such a coin remained in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, the value would increase even further, because condition is a silent amplifier in numismatics, taking rarity and pushing it to its highest possible level. And one of the most exciting possibilities discussed quietly among advanced collectors is the concept of a mule error involving a modern cent, where mismatched dies from different designs or denominations were accidentally paired together, producing a coin that should not exist according to official mint records. And although mule errors are extremely rare, their existence proves that even highly controlled systems can fail, and a confirmed 2010 cent mule would instantly become one of the most famous modern era coins ever discovered, attracting global attention and intense bidding wars. And global attention matters more than ever in today's connected world, because collectors from across continents now compete in the same auctions, bringing unprecedented levels of wealth into the market. And when a coin captures international imagination, its value can leap beyond traditional numismatic logic into the realm of fine art pricing, where story, rarity, and prestige dominate. And prestige is another crucial factor in understanding how a penny could reach $15 million, because elite collectors are not simply buying metal, they are buying recognition, legacy, and the right to own something no one else can. And when a single coin becomes the definitive example of a category, the coin everyone talks about, references, and dreams of owning. Its price can escalate to levels that seem unreal to outsiders, and the 2010 D penny fits this model perfectly because of its modern date, its unexpected potential, and the disbelief it inspires. And disbelief is powerful, because it draws attention, media coverage, and curiosity, all of which feed demand, and media stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary coins have historically driven massive spikes in interest and prices, because they tap into a universal hope that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon a life-changing discovery, and imagine the narrative. Power of a modern penny found in a roll, a pocket, or a forgotten jar, suddenly revealed to be one of the rarest mint errors ever produced, authenticated by experts, graded by a top-tier service, and unveiled to the world. That story alone would add millions to its value, because collectors are not immune to emotion, and emotion is often what separates a six-figure coin from an eight-figure one. And authentication plays a massive role here, because when values reach into the millions, trust becomes everything, and a 2010 descent verified through rigorous testing, including weight analysis, metal composition testing, die study, and historical comparison, would carry a level of credibility that reassures buyers they are not just purchasing a rumor or a novelty, but a legitimate piece of mint history. And mint history itself is a powerful selling point, because errors reveal the hidden human side of coin production, the moments where machines jammed, dies wore out, planchets slipped, or procedures failed, and those moments are frozen forever in metal, making each error coin a snapshot of a system under pressure. And the late 2000s and early 2010s were a time of economic stress, increased production demands, and cost-cutting measures, all of which could theoretically contribute to unusual mistakes slipping through unnoticed. And while most errors are caught and destroyed, it only takes one to escape to rewrite what we believe is possible. And beyond technical factors, there is also the speculative element of the market, because high-net-worth individuals increasingly view rare coins as alternative investments, tangible assets that are portable, historically significant, and independent of traditional financial systems. And a one-of-a-kind modern era coin with global recognition would fit perfectly into such portfolios, driving competition and price escalation. And competition is the final accelerant in the journey to $15 million, because when two or more determined buyers decide they must own the same irreplaceable object, logic often gives way to desire, and bids climb rapidly, sometimes astonishingly, until the price reflects not just rarity but rivalry. Next. 2007 D1 cent. Today, because the story you're about to hear will completely transform the way you look at modern pocket change, especially the humble 2007 D1 cent coin, a penny so common, so recent, and so easily ignored that almost no one would ever imagine it could be worth an astonishing $13 million. Yet under the right circumstances, with the right combination of minting errors, production mistakes, historical coincidences, collector psychology, and pure chance, this modern cent becomes one of the most fascinating what-if legends in the entire world of numismatics. And as you listen, I want you to imagine holding a simple brown copper-colored coin in your hand, something you may have spent without thinking or tossed into a jar years ago, never once suspecting that deep within its metal, its strike, and its story could lie a life-changing secret, because the magic of coin collecting has never been limited to ancient gold or rare colonial silver. Sometimes the most powerful discoveries hide in plain sight, and the 2007 D penny represents that truth perfectly. And to understand how a coin struck in the 21st century could even be discussed at a $13 million level, we need to explore the environment in which it was created, because in 2007 the United States Mint was operating at enormous scale, producing billions of 1-cent coins every year under intense pressure to keep costs low, maintain speed, and meet nationwide demand. And even though technology had advanced dramatically by this time, coin production was still a physical process involving metal blanks, dies, presses, conveyors, human oversight, and constant motion. And wherever speed meets machinery, there is always room for imperfection, and those imperfections are exactly where legendary error coins are born, because while most mistakes are caught and destroyed, a microscopic number escape unnoticed, slipping quietly into circulation, waiting years, sometimes decades, to be discovered. And it only takes One extraordinary survivor to rewrite everything collectors believe about a year or a denomination, and one of the most powerful possibilities behind the $13 million valuation of a 2007 penny begins with the concept of the wrong planchet error, because although 2007 cents were supposed to be struck on copper-plated zinc blanks of a very precise weight and composition, history has proven again and again that planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins can accidentally enter the cent production stream, and if a 2007 cent were struck on a blank made of an entirely different metal such as solid copper, bronze, steel, aluminum, or an experimental alloy, the difference would be immediately noticeable in weight, thickness, color, and sound, and if advanced metallurgical testing confirmed that the composition did not match any authorized cent planchet for that year, the coin would instantly become a numismatic anomaly of the highest order, because modern wrong planchet errors are exponentially rarer than older ones due to improved quality control, and when rarity collides with modern disbelief, collector demand can explode, creating the kind of market pressure that drives prices into the millions, especially if the coin is unique or nearly unique, and uniqueness is one of the most powerful drivers of value in the entire collectibles world, because a coin with no true comparison becomes impossible to price using traditional logic, and that is where numbers like $13 million begin to make sense, not as everyday values but as peak valuations reached under intense competition. And then there is the equally thrilling possibility of a transitional or experimental metal error, because even in modern times the mint experiments with materials, coatings, bonding processes, and cost-saving measures behind closed doors, and while these experiments are not intended for public release, history proves that mistakes can happen, and if a 2007 penny were struck on an experimental planchet or a leftover batch of test blanks with a metal composition that deviates from standard copper-plated zinc, the coin would represent not just an error but a glimpse into hidden mint history, and coins that reveal secrets the mint never meant to share are incredibly desirable to collectors, museums, and investors alike, because they tell stories that exist nowhere else, and when such a coin is authenticated, documented, and widely publicized, its value can escalate dramatically, driven by both rarity and historical intrigue. And another major pillar of the $13 million narrative is the possibility of an extreme double die error, because while minor machine doubling is common and usually insignificant, a true hub double die occurs during the die creation process, when the design is impressed onto the die more than once at misaligned angles, producing bold, clearly separated doubling on elements like the date, the mint mark, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." And although double dies are known throughout U.S. coinage history, finding a dramatic example on a modern coin like a 2007 penny would shock the numismatic world, because modern die-making technology was designed specifically to prevent such mistakes, and when a system fails despite safeguards, the resulting error becomes even more valuable because it represents an unexpected breakdown, and if only a tiny number of coins were struck before the defective die was discovered and removed, the scarcity would be extreme, and extreme scarcity combined with visual drama creates a perfect storm for explosive value growth. And beyond double dies, there are strike errors to consider, because during high-speed production, coins can be struck off-center, struck multiple times, struck through foreign material, or struck when the die itself is damaged. And while many of these errors are relatively common and modestly priced, an extraordinary example, especially one combining multiple errors, can reach elite status. Imagine a 2007 penny that is dramatically off-center yet still shows the full date and mint mark, or one that displays a massive retained cud where part of the die broke away, leaving a raised blob of metal that reshaped the coin entirely. And if such an error occurred early in the die's life, producing only a handful of examples before detection, the rarity would be extraordinary, and rarity is magnified even further when the coin is preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, because condition acts as a multiplier in numismatics, taking rarity and pushing it to its highest possible value. And one of the most whispered about possibilities among advanced collectors is the idea of a mule error involving a modern cent, where mismatched dies from different designs or denominations were accidentally paired together, creating a coin that officially should not exist. And although mule errors are among the rarest mint mistakes known, their existence proves that even highly controlled systems can fail, and a confirmed 2007 cent mule would instantly become one of the most famous modern error coins ever discovered, attracting attention from collectors, museums, investors, and media outlets worldwide. And media attention is a powerful force in value creation, because once a coin becomes widely known, demand expands far beyond the traditional collector base, bringing in people who want to own a piece of history, a symbol of rarity, or a tangible reminder that Extraordinary things can still happen, and in today's connected world, global competition plays a massive role because collectors from Asia, Europe, the Middle East and beyond now compete in the same auctions, bringing unprecedented levels of wealth into the market. And when multiple high net worth individuals set their sights on the same irreplaceable object, bidding can escalate rapidly, sometimes reaching levels that seem unreal. And this is how a penny can reach 8 figures, not through metal content or denomination, but through story, rarity, prestige and competition. And prestige itself is a crucial element because elite collectors often seek not just rare coins but the rarest example of a category, the coin that defines it, the one referenced in books, articles and conversations. And a legendary 2007 error cent would fit perfectly into that role because it defies expectations coming from a year most people consider too modern to matter, and that defiance adds emotional power because it tells collectors that treasures are still being created even now. And discovery stories amplify this power even further, because imagine the narrative of an ordinary person finding a strange-looking 2007 penny in change, noticing something unusual, submitting it for expert analysis, and unknowingly triggering one of the most exciting numismatic discoveries of the modern era. And discovery stories resonate deeply because they offer hope, the idea that anyone anywhere could stumble upon something life changing, and that hope fuels roll hunting, searching and ongoing interest, keeping demand alive even when no confirmed public sale has occurred. And authentication underpins all of this, because at multi-million-dollar levels buyers demand absolute certainty, and a $13 million 2007 penny would need to be verified through rigorous testing, including precise weight measurement, metal composition analysis, microscopic dye study and comparison with known mint records. And once authenticated and encapsulated by a top-tier grading service, the coin's legitimacy would be cemented, transforming it from a curiosity into a blue-chip collectible. And beyond the technical and market factors, there is also the philosophical appeal of error coins. Next, 2000 1-cent coin. Today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about, debated, and fascinating modern coin legends ever whispered among collectors, the astonishing story of the 2000 1-cent coin that, under extremely rare circumstances, is believed by some experts and collectors to reach a jaw-dropping valuation of up to $11 million. A story that begins like any other with a humble penny but grows into a powerful narrative of minting errors, microscopic mistakes, human oversight, mechanical failure, and the perfect storm of rarity, condition, timing, and collector demand that can transform a 1-cent coin into a life-changing treasure. Because the year 2000 itself was already historic as the dawn of a new millennium, a moment loaded with symbolism, anticipation, and global attention. And coins struck during this period carry emotional and historical weight that later years simply cannot replicate. And when you combine that symbolic year with the Denver Mint Mark, a facility known for producing massive quantities but also for occasional, dramatic anomalies when equipment was pushed to its limits, you begin to understand how a coin like the 2000 penny could become the centerpiece of one of the most valuable error coin narratives in modern numismatics. Because while billions of pennies were produced around that time, only an infinitesimal fraction could ever display the exact chain of rare errors that elevate value into the millions. And it all starts with understanding how coins are supposed to be made, because value is born where perfection fails, when metal planchets meant to be uniform are instead flawed from the start, sometimes cut from improper alloy strips, sometimes rolled too thin or too thick, sometimes contaminated with foreign metals, sometimes punched off-center, sometimes fed twice or 3 times into presses never designed to create uniqueness. And in the case of the legendary 2000 penny, collectors speculate about a convergence of several ultra-rare mistakes occurring together, not just one error but a cascading sequence that turns probability into near impossibility, beginning with the metal composition itself, because by 2000 the United States Mint had long shifted to copper-plated zinc cents, and yet there are documented cases where transitional planchets or wrong stock blanks slip into production lines, meaning a penny could be struck on an experimental alloy, an improperly plated zinc core, or even a leftover copper planchet from earlier years. And if a 2000 penny were struck on the wrong metal entirely, verified through metallurgical testing, its rarity would immediately place it among the most elite error coins known, but that alone would not reach 11 million, which is why theories go further, exploring the possibility of a dramatic double die obverse combined with extreme die deterioration, creating lettering that appears melted, ghosted, or doubled in ways so bold they can be seen without magnification, because true hub doubling occurs during die creation, not during striking, and produces crisp, separated images that cannot be replicated by simple machine doubling. And if a 2000D penny displayed a strong, verified double die affecting multiple design elements such as the date, Liberty, and in God We Trust simultaneously, it would already be a major rarity. But then imagine layering onto that a dramatic off-center strike, perhaps 40 to 60% off while still retaining a full visible date and mint mark, a combination collectors crave because it tells a clear story of malfunction while preserving identity. And now imagine that same coin also suffering a misaligned die strike, where the obverse and reverse do not line up properly, adding another layer of uniqueness. And then consider a Broadstrike scenario where the collar fails, allowing the coin to spread outward unnaturally, creating a larger than normal diameter with distorted rims, and suddenly you are no longer talking about a penny but about a singular artifact of industrial chaos frozen in copper and zinc. And still the story deepens, because some speculative accounts include the possibility of a multi-strike error, where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, perhaps rotated between strikes, leaving overlapping impressions that look like echoes of Lincoln's portrait and the memorial design bleeding into one another, a visual spectacle that collectors describe as mesmerizing. And when multiple strikes occur on an off-center, wrong planchet, double die coin, the result is something that defies standard classification, forcing grading services to create custom descriptions. And it is precisely this inability to neatly categorize that drives extreme valuations, because collectors at the highest levels do not just pay for rarity, they pay for narrative, for a coin that forces experts to stop, debate, document, and rethink what is possible. And in the hypothetical $11 million scenario, condition plays an equally critical role, because errors are often damaged, bent, or circulated. But if such a massively flawed 2000D penny somehow escaped into circulation briefly and was then preserved in near mint or mint state condition, with original luster still visible beneath the chaos of its errors, it would defy expectation and multiply desirability exponentially, because pristine error coins are paradoxes, mistakes that were never meant to exist yet survived untouched. And then there is the factor of discovery timing, because a coin found during the early years of internet-driven collecting, authenticated and revealed at a major auction during a period of heightened interest in millennium coins, could ignite bidding wars fueled by media coverage, viral videos, and the psychology of once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. And auction history shows us repeatedly that when two or more ultra-wealthy collectors decide they must own the same unique object, price ceilings shatter, logic dissolves, and numbers once considered absurd become reality, especially when the item in question carries cultural symbolism like the year 2000, Lincoln's enduring legacy, and the mystique of a penny worth millions. And this is where the $11 million figure enters the conversation, not as a guaranteed price but as a speculative peak driven by perfect conditions, verified authenticity, ironclad provenance, and the presence of multiple high-profile bidders determined to claim numismatic immortality, because ownership of such a coin is not just possession, it is status, it is history, it is a story retold in books, articles, and documentaries. And beyond the physical errors themselves, collectors also weigh the possibility of mint documentation anomalies, such as missing or incomplete production records, maintenance logs showing press malfunctions, or internal reports of quality control failures during specific production runs. At the Denver Mint in 2000, because when physical evidence aligns with archival mystery, the aura of the coin intensifies, transforming it from a mere error into a legend, and legends command premiums far beyond their metal and mechanics, and even microscopic details matter, like die cracks running through Lincoln's portrait that resemble lightning, cuds where chunks of the die broke away leaving raised blobs of metal, or clash marks where dies struck each other without a planchet, transferring ghostly outlines of opposite-side designs onto the coin, because each additional anomaly acts like another lock on a vault, reducing the number of comparable specimens to zero. And when a coin becomes truly one of one, traditional price guides become meaningless, replaced by negotiation, spectacle, and the emotional calculus of collectors who understand that if they walk away, there may never be another chance. And while skeptics rightly point out that no publicly recorded sale has yet Confirmed a 2000D penny at $11 million, the numismatic world is filled with examples of coins once dismissed as fantasy later redefining reality, because value is not static, it evolves with discovery, scholarship, and desire, and today's impossible is tomorrow's headline, especially as new technologies allow for deeper analysis of old coins, revealing hidden layers of error previously undetectable, and as more people search their change inspired by viral stories, the possibility remains that a truly extraordinary specimen could emerge from obscurity, and this possibility alone fuels the fascination, driving collectors to scrutinize every 2000D penny under magnification, searching for doubling, misalignment, unusual weight, odd coloration, or anything that feels just slightly wrong, because in the world of error coins, wrong is right, and mistakes are miracles. And even if the $11 million valuation represents the absolute extreme of what could happen under perfect circumstances, the broader lesson remains powerful, that modern coins are not immune to becoming treasures, that value is not confined to ancient gold or rare silver, but can exist in the smallest denomination when history, error, and human obsession collide. And as you hold a penny in your hand, it is worth remembering that behind every coin is a story of machines and people, of precision and failure. And sometimes, just sometimes, those failures align so perfectly that they create something priceless, and that is why the legend of the 2000D 1-cent coin continues to captivate collectors around the world, why it is whispered about in forums, debated at coin shows, and featured in videos like this one. Next. 1983 1 cent. Today we are stepping into one of the most fascinating, controversial, and electrifying stories in modern American numismatics, the incredible tale of the 1983 1-cent coin that under the rarest and most astonishing circumstances has been associated with valuations reaching as high as $9 million. A story that perfectly captures why collectors around the world never stop checking their pockets, jars, and drawers, because the year 1983 sits at a unique crossroads in United States mint history, a year marked by transition, pressure, experimentation, and subtle chaos behind the scenes, all of which created the perfect environment for mistakes that were never meant to escape into the public, and yet some did, slipping quietly into circulation, unnoticed for years, only to later ignite shockwaves through the collecting community when their true nature was discovered. Because 1983 was not just another year for pennies, it was a pivotal moment following the mint's dramatic shift from solid copper cents to copper-plated zinc compositions, a change driven by rising metal costs and economic necessity, and whenever a mint undergoes a major material transition, the risk of error multiplies exponentially, as old stock, new stock, experimental blanks, worn dies, and overworked machinery all collide within the same production environment, creating opportunities for coins that should not exist at all, and it is precisely within this chaos that the legend of the ultra-valuable 1983 penny is born, beginning with the most famous and foundational anomaly associated with this year, the mysterious appearance of 1983 pennies struck on bronze planchets instead of the standard copper-plated zinc, because officially, bronze cents were discontinued after 1982, and yet a tiny number of 1983 dated pennies have been authenticated as being struck on leftover bronze blanks, weighing approximately 3.11 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams, and this alone already elevates such coins into elite territory, as they represent a wrong planchet error of the highest order, a coin that defies official mint records and challenges assumptions about production controls. But even this remarkable error is only the foundation of the $9 million scenario, because value at that level demands not just rarity, but a convergence of multiple extraordinary factors. And collectors who theorize about a $9 million 1983 penny often imagine a specimen that combines a bronze planchet error with additional, dramatic striking anomalies, such as a bold double die obverse where Lincoln's profile, the date, and the inscriptions show clear, separated doubling that can be seen with the naked eye, indicating a hubbing error during die creation rather than a simple mechanical slip, because true double dies are among the most coveted errors in all of numismatics, especially when they occur on already rare wrong planchet coins, and when such doubling is strong, symmetrical, and well preserved, it adds layers of desirability that multiply value rather than merely adding to it, and then imagine that same coin also exhibiting signs of die deterioration or die breakage, with cracks radiating across the surface, cuts forming where pieces of the die broke away entirely, and unusual raised areas of metal that distort the design in dramatic ways, creating a visual story of a die pushed far beyond its intended lifespan. And now consider the possibility of an off-center strike, where the coin was not properly aligned within the press, resulting in a portion of the design being shifted toward the edge or partially missing, while still retaining a fully readable date and mint mark, because collectors prize off-center errors most when the identity of the coin remains intact, and when off-center striking occurs on a wrong planchet, double die coin. The result is something so improbable that it borders on mythical, and yet the minting process, especially during periods of transition, has proven time and again that such improbabilities can and do occur, and the story grows even more compelling when we factor in the potential for a missing or weakly struck mint mark, caused by grease-filled dies or worn punches, adding another anomaly that invites debate and analysis among experts. Because coins that spark disagreement and discussion tend to command higher prices than those that are easily categorized, and in the case of a hypothetical $9 million 1983 penny, debate would be inevitable, as experts scrutinize every micron of metal, every ridge and valley, searching for clues about how such a coin came to be. And then there is the question of strike quality and preservation, because error coins are often damaged or mishandled, but a truly legendary specimen would need to be preserved in astonishing condition, perhaps mint state or near mint state, with original luster still visible beneath the distortions, indicating that the coin was discovered early and protected from circulation wear. And this paradox of a severely flawed coin in pristine condition is one of the most powerful drivers of extreme value, because it defies expectations and suggests that fate itself intervened to preserve the mistake for future discovery. And beyond physical characteristics, provenance plays a massive role in pushing valuations into the millions, because a coin with a documented discovery story, perhaps found by a sharp-eyed collector, authenticated by multiple major grading services, featured in prominent numismatic publications, and showcased at major coin shows, develops a reputation that transcends metal and mechanics, becoming a cultural artifact within the collecting world. And when such a coin enters the auction arena, especially during a time of heightened interest in error coins and modern rarities, bidding can escalate rapidly, driven by wealthy collectors who understand that some opportunities appear only once in a lifetime, and auction history has repeatedly shown that when two or more determined bidders fixate on a unique object, price ceilings dissolve, estimates become irrelevant, and final hammer prices rewrite the record books. And the year 1983 carries its own unique emotional and historical weight, representing the end of an era for traditional copper cents and the full embrace of a new composition, making any anomaly from that year especially symbolic, because it represents the last echoes of the old system colliding with the new. And symbolism matters deeply in high-end collecting, often as much as rarity itself, and some theories surrounding ultra-valuable 1983 pennies even extend into the realm of experimental strikes, suggesting the possibility that test planchets or unofficial trials were conducted during the transition, and that a small number of these experimental coins escaped into circulation, unrecorded and undocumented, which, if ever conclusively proven, would send shockwaves through the numismatic community and instantly elevate any confirmed specimen into legendary status, because coins that challenge official narratives tend to captivate collectors, historians, and the media alike, creating a perfect storm of attention that fuels value growth. And microscopic analysis can reveal even more intrigue, such as unusual plating thickness, incomplete bonding between copper layers and zinc cores, internal voids, or metallurgical inconsistencies that indicate experimental or flawed material preparation. And when such internal errors align with visible striking anomalies, the result is a coin that tells a story at every level, from surface to core. And then there is the role of time itself, because coins that remain undiscovered for decades build mystique, and when they finally surface, they arrive not as curiosities but as revelations, prompting collectors to re-examine assumptions about what else might still be hidden. And this sense of ongoing possibility sustains the legend of the $9 million 1983 penny, even in the absence of a publicly confirmed sale at that exact figure, because numismatics is not static, values evolve as knowledge expands, markets shift, and new discoveries emerge, and what seems unimaginable today can become tomorrow's reality under the right conditions. Especially as global wealth increases and more collectors seek tangible, portable stores of value with compelling stories. And modern media amplifies these stories faster than ever, turning rare coins into viral sensations that capture the imagination of people far beyond traditional collecting circles, and this broader exposure introduces new bidders into the market, some of whom are less constrained by traditional price guides and more driven by emotion, prestige, and the desire to own something truly unique. And it is within this environment that a $9 million valuation becomes conceivable, not as a guaranteed outcome but as the upper boundary of what could happen if every factor aligned perfectly, from physical characteristics and condition to provenance, timing, and competitive bidding, and even for those who remain skeptical, the underlying truth remains undeniable, that the 1983 penny is one of the most important and intriguing modern-era coins ever produced, a symbol of transition, imperfection, and hidden potential, and its story serves as a powerful reminder that extraordinary value can emerge from the most ordinary objects, that mistakes can become masterpieces, and that history often hides in plain sight. Last. 1999 D1 cent. Today we turn our attention to an incredible modern rarity that has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide, the 1999 D1 cent coin, a seemingly ordinary penny that under very rare and extraordinary circumstances has been linked to value soaring as high as $8 million, a story steeped in fascinating errors, mistakes, and an extraordinary combination of factors that transform this humble coin into a potentially life-changing treasure, and to truly appreciate the magnitude of this coin's value, it's essential to understand the context of the late 1990s U.S. mint production environment, a time when the Denver Mint was operating at peak capacity, striking billions of pennies each year to meet the insatiable demand for the smallest denomination in American currency, and amidst this staggering volume, the possibility of subtle and sometimes dramatic errors increased, with machinery pushed to its limits, quality control challenged by speed, and human oversight sometimes failing to catch the rarest and most elusive mistakes, and these imperfections, while often minute and overlooked, are what can turn an ordinary penny into a numismatic marvel, because rarity, uniqueness, and demand are the three pillars upon which the value of error coins is built, and the 1999 D penny fits this framework in ways that defy simple explanation. Beginning with the most widely documented and highly sought error associated with this date, the double die obverse. A minting anomaly where the coin's design elements, such as the date, motto, and the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, appear doubled or shadowed, but unlike common mechanical doubling that results in a faint ghost image, true double die errors occur at the hubbing stage, creating crisp, fully defined duplicates of the design elements that give the coin an unmistakable and dramatic visual impact. And a strong double die 1999 D penny would instantly become a centerpiece for collectors due to the rarity of such errors in modern minting, especially when verified by leading grading services and numismatic experts, but the story deepens when we consider that the 1999 D penny has been reported with other accompanying errors that multiply its desirability exponentially, such as off-center strikes where the coin is struck partially off the planchet, leaving part of the design missing or shifted toward one edge, and when this occurs in conjunction with a double die, it becomes a collector's dream, because such multi-error coins are rare to the point of near uniqueness, and their visual appeal is heightened by the dramatic distortion that sets them apart from any ordinary penny. And then there is the intriguing possibility of wrong planchets or composition errors, because while the 1999 penny was officially struck on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, numismatic research and analysis have documented cases where planchets made of incorrect metals, or with plating errors such as missing copper layers or incomplete bonding, have surfaced, creating coins with unusual weights, coloration, and surface textures that defy official minting records. And if a 1999 D penny were to be found on such a wrong planchet, especially in combination with other striking errors, its rarity and historical significance would increase dramatically, potentially pushing its value into the multi-million-dollar range. But condition plays a critical role in defining the coin's ultimate worth, because error coins frequently emerge damaged, bent, scratched, or worn from circulation, reducing their market appeal. yet when a 1999 D penny with multiple rare errors is discovered in pristine, mint-state condition, with original luster intact and minimal contact marks, it becomes an extraordinary rarity, as it demonstrates that the coin escaped the rigors of daily use, preserving every detail of its mistakes for collectors to study and marvel over, and the more perfect the coin, the higher the prices it commands at auction, because pristine condition coins not only tell a story but also represent the best example of that story available to the public, and beyond the physical attributes of the coin, provenance is an equally important factor that drives value, as coins with well-documented discovery histories, accompanied by authentication from top grading services like PCGS or NGC, and featured in high-profile auctions or numismatic exhibitions, gain a status far beyond their metal and mistakes, transforming them into symbols of prestige, history, and collecting achievement, and this prestige is a major reason why the 1999 D penny can reach extraordinary valuations, as collectors often compete fiercely for coins with clear, verifiable backgrounds that reduce the risk of forgery or misattribution, thereby ensuring that their investment is secure and respected. And timing also plays a crucial role in value appreciation, because the coin market is influenced by trends, media exposure, and broader economic conditions, and a 1999 D penny with documented errors that emerges at the right moment, such as during a surge in interest for modern error coins or following a viral online discovery, can ignite bidding wars among collectors, driving prices well beyond typical expectations. And auction history teaches us that when two or more determined collectors lock eyes on a unique coin, prices can soar exponentially, with estimates and price guides becoming mere suggestions rather than limits, particularly when the coin is symbolic of the late 20th century, a period rich in cultural, technological, and economic change, and the year 1999 itself carries additional significance as the close of a millennium, amplifying the coin's emotional and historical appeal to collectors who value narrative as much as rarity. And some speculative theories even propose that the 1999 D penny may exist with multiple strike errors layered atop one another, such as broadstrikes where the collar fails to contain the planchet during striking, causing the coin to expand beyond its normal diameter and lose its defined rims, or die clashes where the dies accidentally strike each other without a planchet in between, imprinting ghostly images of the opposite side's design onto the coin's surface, creating ethereal and haunting effects that further increase numismatic curiosity and value. And when these rare strike anomalies occur in combination with double dies, off-center strikes, or wrong planchets, the coin becomes not just an error but a masterpiece of minting mishaps, a coin that collectors dream of but rarely see, and the quest for such a specimen fuels the excitement and dedication of numismatists around the world, who meticulously examine each 1999 D penny they encounter, often under magnification and with specialized equipment, searching for the subtle clues that might indicate extraordinary rarity, and this obsessive scrutiny is what keeps the legend alive and the market dynamic, as every new discovery or authenticated coin adds to the collective understanding and appreciation of the year's minting anomalies, and advanced technologies such as X-ray fluorescence spectrometry and digital microscopy now allow researchers to peer beneath the surface of coins, revealing previously invisible details about metal composition, plating thickness, and die wear, providing scientific evidence that can confirm or challenge long-held beliefs about specific error coins, and these technological advances have only heightened interest in modern errors like the 1999 D penny, as they open new avenues for authentication and study, reducing uncertainty and enhancing collector confidence. And it is worth noting that skepticism exists within the numismatic community regarding the multi-million-dollar valuations, as no publicly recorded auction sale has definitively reached $8 million for a 1999 D penny, but this skepticism is balanced by the understanding that such valuations represent theoretical maximums under ideal conditions, where rarity, condition, provenance, and collector demand converge perfectly, and history shows that once in a while, these theoretical ceilings become realities as new specimens surface or as bidding dynamics shift in unexpected ways. And whether or not the $8 million figure is realized in the near term, the 1999 D penny remains one of the most compelling examples of how modern coins, even those minted in massive quantities, can harbor rare anomalies capable of extraordinary value, challenging the conventional wisdom that only ancient or scarce coins hold significant financial and historical worth, and the broader implication is that every coin in circulation carries potential, a hidden story waiting to be uncovered, and that the line between everyday currency and rare collectible is often thinner than it appears, inspiring countless collectors to continue their searches with renewed hope and excitement, because the thrill of discovery is as powerful as any monetary reward, and in the end, it is the stories, mysteries, and human connections that make numismatics an endlessly fascinating pursuit. And so as we close today's exploration of the remarkable 1999 D1-cent coin and its possible journey to an $8 million valuation, remember that behind every coin lies a world of history, error, and possibility, and that the greatest treasures may be hiding right under our noses, in the change we handle every day, waiting for the right moment, the right eye, and the right story to bring them to light once again.